like to talk about little people. Not midgets and dwarfs, but fey little people. And if you have any information on this topic or a good book for reference, please put it in the comment section down below for all of us, because I think we're all interested in this. And my story, let's see, happened probably about 10 years ago, and I was in the home of a shaman. And I don't know much about shamanism, although I studied it and I used it for a specific purpose in doing some soul work. And that's my extent of it. And my knowledge basically comes from this book right here. And if you're interested in shamanism, this is the book I recommend, and I'll find a link for you. Anyway, I digress. The story about the little people, I was in his home and we were discussing fairies, and the different types of fairies and the ones that I had seen, which I'm sure you watched my video about seeing the fairies, and if you haven't, then I'll link that for you somewhere up here. And so he was talking about little people, and he said that these little people, there was a group of them, and they lived in his home, and that they followed him house to house regardless of where he lived. And he thinks that he picked them up in Scotland. And so the only time I've ever heard about them other than this instance was in old Scottish or Irish movies, just a reference basically. And so anyway, he was talking about, various people that had visited his home and that had seen them from time to time. And it was just, one of those conversations that you have with like-minded people. And so I didn't think anything about it, and I put it out of my head. Well, at that time, my daughter, my youngest daughter, was around 5 or 6 years old. And she had really long, all the way down her back, almost to her butt, dark brown hair. And so I was walking through from the living room into the kitchen one day and saw what I thought was her scurry through and run underneath the kitchen table. Well, it was a small table, and all the chairs pushed in took up all of the space underneath. There wasn't any other space under. So when I saw her dart underneath that table, I thought, how in the world is she fitting in there? And I laughed, and I said, what in the world are you doing? And I pulled the chair out to get her, and she wasn't there. She was back on the other side of the house, behind me, and there was no one there underneath the table. So that was my experience with little people. So like I said, I don't know much about them, and you can't exactly Google little people because what you get is not fey. So if you have any reference books, please do put that in the comments down below, because I would like to study them and see what other people have seen, or research their folklore, and I'm sure you would too. The only other experience in that home that I had was, as I said, he was a shaman. And one day I was sitting watching television with him, and he used one specific room in his home for his journeys. And if you are a person who studies this, I would recommend you to do as well. It's like your sacred space. And once it becomes your sacred space and you use it often for journeying, the magic builds up, and the protective barrier builds up, and it's residual magic. And so it makes it easier to journey if you do it in one specific spot. And when I did it, I had one specific spot in my home as well. So anyway, back to the story. We were watching television, and I kept, like you do, the corner of your eye, the peripheral vision, that's where you see things. So I kept seeing something off to the side and turning to look. And I kept seeing what I thought were like white butterflies flying around this door to this room, and that was the room that he used for his journey. What I find interesting, and the reason why I'm telling you this story, he didn't see that. I saw them. And after a couple couple of times of me doing that, looking down that hallway to the doorway of that room. He said, "What do you see?" And I said, "White butterflies, like small butterflies?" And he said, "Moths. White moths are my totem, and it probably means I need to journey. There's something, some communication that needs to be made." But what was odd was I was seeing his message. He wasn't seeing his message. So that's where the story is interesting, I think. So I think that if you are very intuitive, you can pick up on signs, even signs that are meant for other people, even when they don't. So just sharing my stories with you, as I like to do, and I hope you are enjoying them. And tell me your stories too, because we all like a good magical story, don't we? Have a good day, guys.